Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to this first Human Variations eAF training session. So this is our post-go live training session. We purposely wanted to organize this immediately after the go live to make the session a bit more interactive. So if you already have access to the system, you're welcome to, in parallel while we're doing this training, log into the system and have a look at the different features. Of course, you don't have to. Just to note also, we are recording this session today, and the recording will be made available on the eSubmissions website, and will also provide short videos of different sessions, which may be extracted from this session, just for your awareness. If we look at the next slide, which is the schedule for today's training. So we'll talk a little bit about the scenarios for which the new form can be used and what it can't be used for. Then my colleague Joao will talk a little bit about the access management and the data visibility for each role. I will do a demonstration of the live system, showing exactly how to fill in the form and how to export the PDF, and we will then have some time for Q&A. But please, of course, feel free to ask any questions during the session, and my colleague Christina will now introduce how to ask questions during the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Okay, so first of all, we will use Slido in order to collect your questions. It's very easy to use. You can either join via web browser, so at slido.com, and insert in the code you see here, so #7207903, or you can decide to join via the QR code via mobile. During the session, you can either decide to send your own questions or to upvote the questions from other participants and that you want to hear answered. During the live session, we will then show all the questions received on the screen and manage live the Q&A, in particular starting with the most voted ones. So we kindly invite you, if you're particularly interested in a question, to upvote it. And please note that this session is also being recorded, so in any case it will be made available via the EMA YouTube channel, the eSubmission website, and the PLM portal, so you can also reference to this training session afterwards. Okay, so I give back the floor to Christina. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. And we can move, yes. So here, just to give you a very quick overview of the new PLM portal and the forum. So the PLM stands for Product Lifecycle Management, and the name was chosen because in this new portal, in future, we will also host the EPI, the Electronic Product Information, and the Product Management Service, the PMS, different features. So this will in future be, it's a system that will be growing and will host different systems. So for now, we've added here the link to the PML portal, and one of the really important things in the portal is also the forum. From the forum, you can find announcements, and you can also find, for example, the portal navigation guide and the latest version of the release notes. Also, if we do have planned releases, we always aim to add information into the portal, and the information may be available in the portal earlier than it is published on the eSubmissions website, because in the portal it's more or less immediate. We can add documentation and messages there immediately, whereas to publish something on the eSubmission website is a process that involves multiple colleagues, so that may take a little bit of time. We have also, in addition to the registration guide and the navigation guide, we've already recorded some training videos on how to use the system. This is ongoing work, we will continue recording more of these little videos. So these are aimed to help you to fill in a particular section of the form. So here, for example, how to fill in the procedural information, or how to select the scope. Some important sections are still missing, for example, how to select the products, but we will be adding these very soon. Of course, we will maintain these and we will keep on updating these. And one of the reasons why we wanted to aim for these short videos is that they're easy to update, because we're also addressing any workarounds and any bugs and deficiencies in these mini training videos, so they're easy to then discard and replace by a new version. We can move to the next slide now. Here. So the name of this section of the presentation is actually the scenarios that you can use the eAF for. So I don't have a particular slide for that area, because in principle, you should be able to use the forms for most scenarios. We have, of course, done a lot of testing, but as is often said, production is the best test. Only when we actually really start using the forms, we realize that there may be other scenarios that we have not yet come across, or we did not come across during our testing, even though it was done extensively, that maybe are not possible to be done. However, on the next slide, I have summarized a kind of the most known limitations to the use of the form at the moment. But also bear in mind, this is an initial release. This did not trigger the transition period towards the mandatory use. So it's absolutely optional to use this form at this point of time. It's a big learning curve for everybody. We understand that this is a major change for applicants, because everything literally related to the forms, apart from the content, is changing. So we understand that the adoption will take time, and we don't want to put pressure on applicants. So we wanted to offer you this period of literally being able to familiarize yourself with the forms, to have a little play with, and also report us any important findings so that we can improve the system to be as good as it can possibly be before we trigger that beginning of the transition period. But just to summarize the few known limitations here. So as mentioned before, because the NAPs are not yet available in the system, work sharing cannot be done using the web-based form. So if you have a CAP-NAP work sharing procedure, please also use the PDF form for the CAP. So there shouldn't be any provision of two forms, one including the NAPs and the web form including the CAPs. So just the PDF approach. Then one of the really quite important limitations is the lack of the feature to be able to add new presentations. So if you have a variation which adds new MA numbers, unfortunately we cannot use this form yet, because if you are at all familiar yet with the form, the very first step is to select your products. Of course, you cannot select something that doesn't yet exist. So here we would direct you to use the interactive PDF forms, but we are very much working and looking at best way to implement this feature in the forms. Then also, I would like to highlight a very important known limitation. So we already know that for some products, mainly those that include pre-filled pens and syringes, so injectables, but it can be other products as well. We would like to advise you not to use the form for longer procedures, because we will be, at the moment, the products are coming directly from Sciamed. The products will be coming later on from XEVMPD, and we do this match and merge procedure, which means that the PMS IDs for those products will change. So if you have started, for example, a type 2 variation, and you have selected these products into your form now, then later on when we do that change, the PMS IDs will change and those products will disappear from your form. So if you need to update the form for any purpose, it will be very difficult. So we don't recommend using the form for those kind of longer procedures. Of course, if you have a type 1A, it's absolutely fine, or a shorter procedure, there's no worries. But for longer procedures, such as type 2s, we don't recommend that at the moment. Also, that we have a minor issue with regards to large and complex images or very large tables that you would add as an image into the present and proposed area of the form. So you can continue providing these images or indeed the content for the present and proposed as a separate annex to the form in the section 1.2 of module 1. So there's no change to that approach as we've had with the interactive PDF. And we've got yet another limitation, which we are hoping to solve very soon. So if you have a variation that includes a line extension, but your variation only contains one scope, so then it's not possible yet to tick that box, includes line extension. So you would need to use the PDF, interactive PDF form for that. But hopefully this will be fixed very, very soon. If we go to the next slide, I would like to also mention how are we working and solving these known limitations. So we have we've published a document called Release Notes, and also I wanted to mention a little bit about our change control process. So these release notes are published on the eSubmissions website, and they're also available through the forum. We will regularly update these. So in here, I've just included a screenshot of it, but please feel free to look at it at any time on your own leisure. So for known issues, I have added those that I just mentioned there earlier, but also other things. And we also have a number of bugs, a number of defects listed in there. And as and when we fix these bugs, we will provide an update of this document, and under the version content we will list those things that we have fixed in that particular release, and we will then of course move them away from the known issues area, but we will keep on adding new things that are raised by users like yourselves into this document. So this is something that is good to keep on looking at it and to stay aware that it exists. If you come across with the defect that is not already available listed here, you can, of course, raise it through our service desk. How to do this is available in the user guide, in the portal navigation guide. We detail how to raise questions and bugs through our service desk. But I would suggest that before you raise a new bug, please cross-check with the release notes if it is already listed here, so you don't raise a duplicate. Of course, it may be difficult to identify that it is exactly the same. That's fine. It doesn't matter if accidental duplicates are raised, but we would always recommend to check the release notes first. I think that concludes my section on this, and I think we can hand over to my colleague Joa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina, and good morning, everyone, from my side. Welcome to this session. In this section, I will be focusing on access management. So all the activities, all the information that you need to make sure that is done before actually accessing or interacting with our PLM portal. I will share my screen for the sake of also doing some demonstrations meanwhile presenting. So in this slide, we have an overview of the roles that are applicable to the PLM eAF portal. The main idea that I would like to convey is that we have two types of roles. We have administrators and applicants, and these have different functions or objectives. The administrators aim to approve or deny access requests exclusively, and applicant roles aim to actually give you access to the PLM portal, and with that also to be able to do a couple of actions in the portal. Per se, if you are an administrator, you cannot access the PLM eAF portal. So if you have this role, you need and you want to access the PLM portal, you would need also one applicant related role. Then on the applicant roles, as you can see, we have three roles: applicant contributor, applicant manager, and applicant coordinator. The grants that these roles grant or provide, they work in a cascade mode, meaning that one role inherits the roles of the previous one with some grants in addition. So if we start with the applicant contributor, this would be the most basic role. This role aims to, for instance, if you are a consultant or if you are to have limited access to an application form, it would allow you only to edit specific fields in the application form, select classifications, and be added as a co-author. If you need to actually initiate a new application form, finalize the application form, so export the PDF, you would need to have at least the applicant manager role. And furthermore, the applicant coordinator, this role has the highest grants. So basically, this person has full access to all application forms that have been created within the organization, and all the accesses within each application. Something I didn't say about the applicant manager. The applicant manager can only create and manage their own applications. So the manager would not see application forms within his or her organization that have been created by other users. Something also to refer is that this is a decentralized procedure, meaning that the EMA allows each organization to manage their access by itself. So we grant the administrators the role to approve or deny who has access to the PLM portal. And this then leads me to say that one should be carefully considering the presence of commercially confidential information. So every time that an administrator is approving an access request, you should bear in mind that you are sharing all the products within an application, including the commercially confidential information and product data from the SPOR. So in the case of the applicant manager, this pertains to a specific application. So the applications that are created by this person, this user would see all the products within that application form. If you approve deny applicant coordinators, you are in a way sharing all products informations that have been created in that organization. So moving on to the next slide. In here we have an overview again of the roles and grants in a more granular level. So again, the main idea is that administrator roles have no access or grants on actions that are done within the PLM portal. So administrators can only approve or deny access role requests, and depending on which one you see, which roles you are to approve. And then again, the applicant related roles, they work in a cascade way, as mentioned, applicant coordinator being the one with full access. The manager role would exclude the managing of all applications of his or her organization, and the applicant contributor with more limited access. And applicants also, they would not approve or deny roles. We have here also on the right hand side the rules pertaining the national central authorities. For this first go live, it's maybe not that relevant because we have only CAP products. However, it's in a way relevant as well to see that the roles work exactly the same as for industry users. So what would you need in order to be an administrator or an applicant? Basically, these three points here. So you need an active EMA user account using your an external email address. We encourage that if you belong or act on behalf of multiple organizations, you only create one EMA user account. You can theoretically create as many EMA user accounts as each organization you work with. However, we encourage that you have only one account. You select one of your preferred email address, and then within that account, you then assign different roles which will grant you access to the different organizations. So that is another prerequisite. You should have roles assigned to your EMA user accounts, otherwise you will not be able to interact with the PLM portal. And in case you aim to be an administrator, you also need to have a signed proof of authority. This is one of the steps when actually requesting the user administrator role. We have already made available a user guide for registration, so all this information is detailed in a document that is in the e-submission portal. These prerequisites, they are managed in our EMA account management platform. Here you have a couple of links, and this presentation will be made available in afterwards. These links guide you directly to these different actions. So in case, for instance, you have already interacted with EMA before for other reasons other than the PLM, you may already have an EMA user account. So you may be interested in recovering your credentials, retrieving your username, resetting your password, or then even creating an EMA account from scratch. So you have here all the links. For the EMA user account, I will not do a demo. It's quite a straightforward process where you have to input your name, email, phone number if you wish, and then you have your account created. I would focus more on the how to request an user access role. So here you have already a screenshot of the EMA account management portal and the option to request an user access role would be the request access for organizations. So at this moment, I will jump to the demo. So the EMA account management portal URL is register.ema.europa.eu. I'm already logged in. I will log out so to show you. So this is the main page of the EMA account management portal. And if you have already then the EMA account registered, you would need to click sign in. Otherwise, you can also follow these options here. If you need to create a new account, you can just do this self-service registration form. I will then proceed with the sign in. You add your username and password and log in. So this is again the look and feel of the page. and we would initiate a new access role request by clicking on Request Access for Organizations. Before I click that, there some other information. You have here a box called Your Pending Approvals. So in case you are an administrator, this is where you will find the requests that have been submitted within your organization. And that's where you will need to go to either approve or deny the request. And before clicking on Request Access for Organizations, please make sure that in this box, Latest Forms, you don't have any open or ongoing request. Otherwise, you might not be able to initiate a new request. So I click now Request Access for Organizations, and you can see in this horizontal row the steps that you need to follow in order to submit the access role request. The first two steps relate to the organization selection. We recently did an upgrade on this on the EMA account management, and we allow now in one single request to submit roles for multiple organizations. So that would be beneficial if you again work for several organizations. The next step would be to select the role that you want to request. The fourth step, additional info, is for the case of submitting the administrator role. So this would be the step where you attach the proof of authority document, and then the request is submitted. So I will start with the criteria for selecting an organization. We need to input the country. So it's country is a required field. You can either type, well, just type some letters and then I can click on it, or you can also look for the country by the drop down. So I will choose Netherlands for this demo. And then you need, on top of the country, you need to input an additional criteria. You can choose which one you want. I will, let's say that I work for the UAT organization. So this is a fake organization for the sake of this demonstration. You can input the organization ID or the log ID as you prefer. I click next, and then I should see a list of organizations that fulfill my criteria. Yeah. Okay, there we go. So in this case, my criteria would give me these two organizations. In case you are prompted with still a huge number of organizations, you can still use the search bar to narrow down your filtered organizations. In this case, I only have two, so it's quite straightforward. I will select the two of them. So to showcase that we can submit in one request roles for multiple organizations, I click next. And then I would need to select the role that I want. So you see here the selected organizations from the previous step. On the search, I will write eAF, so to filter down all the roles I can request. And I will say that I want to be an applicant manager for these two organizations. Another maybe relevant information is that you need to make sure that there is an existing administrator before being able to submit an applicant request. Let's say that for these organizations, I would now, so I select the applicant manager. If there was someone, administrator of these organizations, So someone who already initiated the request for this role, Iris eAF Industry User Admin, and has been approved by the EMA, this request that I'm now initiating would not succeed. This is because we need someone to actually approve or deny the request. So in case you face that issue, please contact your manager and make sure that at least one user is an user administrator. So I will proceed now and clicking next. What will happen is that because this is an applicant related role, the step 4, additional information, will be skipped because there are no attachments, no proof of authority is needed for applicant roles, and we will see that we will be prompted with a confirmation message that my request has been submitted and I have an ID. At this step, the user administrator of your organization would then receive a notification, an email notification, informing that a new request has been submitted, and this user would need to log in into the EMA account management portal and again come to this section, your pending approvals, and then approve or deny the request. As soon as your request has been approved, there should be a time of around 45 minutes until we synchronize that role with the access itself to the PLM portal. So please, as soon as you receive notification that your request has been approved, wait around 45 minutes, and then you should be able to access the PLM portal. I'll now go back to the presentation, because then the next step is actually to do the login to the PLM portal. We have been receiving some questions on the multi-factor authentication, so that's what I would want to focus right now. The EMA is improving the security of the interactions with external users, so we aim to have a multi-factor authentication set in all our external portals. This means that besides the normal email password, we also ask for a second method for authentication. So here you can see the steps that you need to follow in order to properly log in into the PLM portal. The first step would be to add your username followed by id.ema.europe.eu. Then if you click next, you enter your password, same as the one you entered in the EMA account management portal, as I just showed. And then we have the second authentication methods. So this is the screen that you will see. And in this case, we can see here one, two, three, four options for multi-factor authentication. The multi-factor authentication is possible via three means. We can use the Microsoft Authenticator app. You can use an SMS code or a call. In all of these, you can manage which ones you prefer. So I will also show you, because the Microsoft Authenticator app, if you have not managed your multi-factor authentication methods, that's the default and also recommended method to authenticate. So this basically means that at this step, you have an app where you get a pop-up where you need to say if yeah, your user is being trying to access the system, so you would need to approve or deny. In case you don't want that, you can then define these other options. So either receive an SMS code or a call to again prove your identity. I will quickly maybe show this my account websites. Yes, so here is where you can actually add the different multi-factor authentications. We need to have a registered phone number. So as mentioned, the default second authentication method is the Microsoft Authenticator app, which I have set up before. And if I want to do another method, I would need to click on sign in method and then either add a phone, an alternate phone, or an office phone for calls. I'll just showcase this step here where you enter your phone number and then you decide which step you do to prove your identity. So that would be it in a nutshell. And I would then now hand over back to my colleague, Christina. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Joao, for that very important session. I will now share my screen and show you the live production system for a training purposes. Just one moment, please. Okay, I hope you can see my screen okay, and you can see the PLM portal. Please shout if you can't before I start talking. So here I've just logged into the PLM portal or went into the website. So as I mentioned, we have the home page and we have the forum page here, which is also a very important source for information. You can add questions in here, you can read the content, but please do not add anything confidential because of course everyone else can see this. We also have included here under the Sport tab a list of medicinal products. So from here, you can see a list of all authorized products that you can look at. You can also see the marketing authorization holder. So there is nothing confidential information here. So all products that are currently available through the system are listed here. So you can check if your product is available. I will move back to the home page and I will sign in. In order to see the list of available products, you need to be signed in. Also, for certain form functions, it's good to be signed in. I will then show you how to use the list of applications. So this can be filtered using different search words or different criteria. You can also filter this based or sort this based on the date, for example. You have different tabs. You have the draft tabs where all your forms that you're currently working on are available. If you decide you don't want one of the forms anymore, it was a test form that you want to get rid of, you can then deactivate that application form and it will move into the deactivated tab. From the deactivated tab, you can then eventually they will be deleted. Currently, there is an option called delete application form. This does not work yet, so please refrain from using it. It actually just moves that deactivated form back to the draft forms, so this cannot be used yet. However, in here, very important, you have an option to reopen an application form. So if you perform deactivation, you can always bring it back to your drafts by reopening the application form. Also, you have the completed section where all the forms that you have finalized are available. And you can then, of course, let's imagine you have generated a form, you finalized it, it has moved into your completed section, but you have received a validation comments and you need to continue editing that form so that you can resubmit. You will then come here to reopen the application form. It moves back to your draft forms and you can do the edits that are required, finalize it again and move it back to completed. So that's very simple. You also have an option to refresh and you can sort have the column visibility as you wish. And it's also possible to download a list of your forms if you have multiple. But then let's move into the actual form creation proper. So here you have two ways to create a new application form. You can do it by using this big button here, or you can go from this menu to use new application form. It's exactly the same. It doesn't matter which one you select. And then we will come to the form. So the very first thing is to select the form type. Currently, we only have the variation form available. You will then give a friendly name. We suggest that you give a name that makes it easier for you to find it in future. So this could be, for example, a product name and procedure type, for example. And then you will select your reference MAH. This is always quickest to do using the organization ID or the log ID that you wish to use, like so, but you can of course always search using the organization name. I will select European Medicines Agency for this demonstration purpose. Then I will click Create and Next. Very important point. After you have clicked Create and Next, it is not possible to change the friendly name and it is not possible to change the marketing authorization holder. So the reference MAH that was selected in that step cannot be changed. If you realize you have selected an incorrect one, you will then have to just deactivate that form and create a new one. For now, it is not possible to change that. I will not demonstrate the co-author addition because we've just had that session by Joao, but I will move forward to the next step. So I will now demonstrate the product selection step. So in here, you will have to click to Add Product tab here. Apologies, I have a very large number of products because I have all centrally authorized products available in my profile, so it's slightly slower than it should be for any of other users. You can then find your product from here, from this list. I will select a product that has this problem that I mentioned earlier, where you may not be able to easily identify the product that you actually want to select if you have a procedure that doesn't contain all presentations of all packaged medicinal products. So for example, Novomix has a mix of pre-filled syringes and pre-filled pens. So from this view, it's impossible for me to know if I don't remember or I'm not familiar yet which PMS ID contains which presentation. So I would, at that case, select all of these and continue to save. Of course, for most of the products available through the system, you will not experience this issue. So this is very specific, mainly for pre-filled pens and pre-filled syringes. But I display this just in case your product is affected. You will then see here a section, a column that lists the number of selected packages. If this is displayed as 0, it is not yet possible to expand this and see the packaged medicinal products underneath. Unfortunately, there is a slight delay in the system that is causing this problem. So ideally, you would be able to see it almost instantaneously. It's now refreshing, and now we can see the number of packages available, which means that I can now extend this column to see what I want to select. So for example, here, my change concerns the needles. So this is in fact the medicinal product that I want to select. So I want to keep in mind the PMS ID for this particular product so that I can go back to my product selection and remove those products that are not concerned by this variation. So I go back here, add product when I want to in fact remove a product. But this is as per design. So here I have a tab called View Selected Products. I simply click on this, and now I have identified the PMS ID of the one product that I want to select for my application because it contains the presentations that I want to use. I remove the other ones and I click Save. And then we will see that I have only selected this one medicinal product that contains the packaged medicinal products that this variation is affecting. Like so. We can then save and we can validate, which marks the section with the green tick. We have completed the correct product has been selected. It may be that this particular medicinal product contains more presentations that you want to select for your particular variation. Don't worry about it yet. These are not all automatically included. There is a latest step where you indicate for which particular MA number is impacted by which variation classification scope. So we have now finished that step, and I will be moving to the next step, which is the types of changes. Here. So now we will move to scope selection. So I will click here, Add Scope. And again, I will click into this magnifying glass to launch the lookup modal. And in here, I can search, for example, let's say I want a device with CE marking. So we can find the scope searching using a part of the name in here. And then we tick and we select. But of course, you also still have the ability to search using the classification code, exactly how you do today in the interactive PDF form. So you know your variation is classification B4A1. So then instead of having to drill down a long drop-down menu, you can simply type, but you can also use the text part. Then we will select the procedure type exactly like we did in the interactive PDF form, and we select. And in here, exactly the same way as in the interactive PDF form, you will have to select either implementation date from a calendar, from a date picker, or you can include an implementation node, for example, upon approval. So this is, of course, only for type 1A or type 1AIN, where the implementation date and the implementation node is mandatory. You can then select all the relevant conditions and documentations. You can do it like this, or for example, if this is not relevant, you can then add a note here, like so, and you can save. And then we can move to the documentations, like so. And you can either add note for all of them, or if you don't meet the condition or you don't have the documentation, then you have to provide a note. But you can always provide a note even if you are meeting the conditions or you are providing the documentations. You may just want to add additional information, and then we save. And if we want to add another scope, just show this very quickly. I know we're running a tiny bit behind schedule, and we want to, of course, save you some time for the important Q&A session. So, for example, here we can search using the classification code and then select like that. And for this case, I will select type 2, like so, and we save. And once we are certain that we have selected the correct classifications, we can check the details that we have selected the correct procedure type. If we at this point realize that there is an error, we can, of course, edit the scope or delete the scope. If you have selected multiple different ones, you can also delete at this level, or you can delete the whole scope at this level. Also, we've received questions in the past in the interactive PDF form where you have selected all the details, added notes, and then you realize you are actually not meeting all the conditions and you need to upgrade, for example, from type 1A to type 1B. Then, of course, that clears everything. Now this doesn't happen. You can simply go and edit the scope, and you can select you can delete only the procedure type and then select a different procedure type, and it keeps the changes. But of course, then be careful and ensure that all the other selections are correct. To save time, I will not display that because it is already available in a short video. So I will validate this section, and you can see it has been ticked that as completed. Then in the procedural information section, this section is very similar to the section 1 of the interactive PDF form. So here, all these options are auto-calculated. So now what I mentioned with the limitation, if I only had one scope, I would not have this including a line extension tick box visible, but now because I have selected more than one scope, I could tick this. Also, if it's a work sharing, it's auto calculated, you cannot change it. If it's an IG variation, it contains only type 1A or type 1A IN variations and meets certain conditions, then this tick box is auto-calculated and you cannot change it. The procedure types that have been selected are listed here for now because only centrally authorized products are available. This is always defaulted to centralized procedure, and here you can then indicate relevant selections like so. You can also add a procedure number. Of course, for centrally authorized products, this is not always available. If you're not aware what it is, you can just leave it empty. Then you will have your MA holder. So please note you cannot change the reference MAH. This was selected as the very first step and it is not possible to change it. So simply you just add a phone number and an email address for the marketing authorization holder, and for the contact person you will add the company and the contact details. So and then we save. And that section is then complete and we can validate. We can see the procedural information section has completed. You now see that a new section has appeared here called additional information. This is because I ticked changes concerns here. So as you know, exactly like in the PDF form, interactive PDF form, you will have this changes concerns section popping up when you have selected either type 1B or type 2 variations only. And in those cases, you must select one from the list. The medical devices tick box is always available also for type 1A variation types. Then we are moving to one of the most important sections of the form, the changes concerns. the proposed changes section. So this is the section 3 of the interactive PDF as we all know it. So we have initially the precise scope and background for change. So this is exactly like today. You will include the precise scope and details here. And we have now split this into 2 different sections as per requested by business. Here, if you don't have any particular background and justification for grouping, for example, you can just type NA or add a dot in here, for example, or you can split the text between precise scope and background for information. Then, very important point, please ensure that you save at this point. If you do not save, whatever you have typed here may be lost in a future step. So it's very, very important to click save at this point. Or you may wish to fill in this section a little bit later. Then the very important section of present and proposed. This section is slightly confusing when you come to this part here. We already know that we would like to improve this in future. We would like to make it more user friendly. But for now, the very first step when you enter this section is to add present and proposed. So come very soon. Here, exactly like in the interactive PDF form, we have the section for present and proposed. You can do editing, you can add images, you can add tables, or you can bring information from an external document. There may be some limitations depending on the external document where you are copy pasting, so the edits may be lost, so you may need to re-edit here, but it depends on the source material. So you will add your present details here and your proposed details here. Like so. Then a very important step that you must do for all forms. As I mentioned in the very first step, the selection of impacted medicinal products was not done in that very first step, but it's done here. So now we are linking the scope and the medicinal product. So for example, for this this particular variation, I select it here, so I'm not selecting both. It depends on your changes, what you need to do. But in this case, I will select the C14 and then I will click here. And you can see the list extends for the packaged medicinal products. And now the products that will be displayed in the section 2 of the PDF export are the ones that I select here. So if not all of these are impacted by a variation, don't select all of them, because then they will be listed and then they will be considered to be part of this particular procedure. So here, if I want to select only these, or if I want to select all, I can do this, or I can untick the ones that I don't want. So for this particular case, I'm only selecting these for this particular change. And I save, but not yet. Because if you try and save at this point, because we haven't done everything yet, we also have an organization selection here, or I can declare that my change does not affect organizations. You will then need to tick this box. But actually, I will display here. If it asks, do you want to save? Always say yes in order to prevent any loss of changes. Because if you actually try and tick this save box, it will tell you you cannot save because you haven't filled it in completely. So you have to follow this prompt. So in here, you can select the present organization from OMS. If it's not available and you have searched it and you didn't find your present organization, you can manually add an organization using these free text fields. But you should only do this if you cannot find the organization that you are looking for from OMS. Then you can perform a search for the country, like so. And then for the proposed organization, you must use the drop-down list. And again, the fastest way to search is always using the org ID or the log ID, but of course you can search using any other attribute, and then you click to save. And I want to show you now, when we go back to this form, how it appears in this list. So now, instead of selecting the organization from OMS, I manually entered the details. So here you have this tiny little yes. If you click to this yes, it will expand the box where you can see the details of the organization that you manually added. In the PDF, it is of course shown completely. You don't need to click any tick box, but this may be slightly difficult to realize that it's there. So you have to look at that. Here we confirm that the changes were kept, and we save, and we move ahead. In order to save time, because I know we're running slightly late, I will just very quickly show how to trigger the medical devices section. So now that we have done that, but we have not yet selected all the scopes that we have selected in a previous step here in the types of changes section, the form would give us an error. So here, if we want to go to add present and proposed, to include all variations, we will need to come here. This is a little bit complicated with the medical devices. So you come here. So say new device, for example, to get over the validation errors. Then we select that scope, and then we come here and we selected the impacted packaged medicinal products, and we click save. And we cannot save because we didn't indicate that this change does not concern organizations, which we need to do there. And now we click save. And then we can trigger the medical devices section, which is done here. We return to this view. We will select this particular scope and product combination. We will select medical device from this list, and this will then trigger this particular section. I will not fully fill it in now because for the benefit of time, but when you click here at device, it will launch a module very, very similar to the section 4D in the interactive PDF form. So you can navigate here to provide all the relevant details. I will click cancel for now. But we will provide details on how to fill this in. It's already included in the user guide, but we will do a specific video for this particular section. And we can then move to the next section. We can pretend that we have filled that in, and we can move into the additional information section. So now, because I have selected a certain tick box here in the procedural information, we will then have the changes concerned sections to be indicated here. So I can, for example, indicate for the extended data exclusivity, and I will save. Other options may appear depending on your selections in the proposed changes section, in the procedural information section. So for example, the 4A, 4B, and 4C from the interactive PDF for orphan pediatric and other additional information sections. So we can save that and validate. And then we will move to the finalization section. So here, so under Annex Documents, we can indicate the impacted area. So for example, just to note here, of course, this Annex 2 is for centralized procedures. So in the PDF form, it's called manufacturing authorization holder for batch release. So here, this term comes from an RMS list. So it may be a little bit confusing if you're looking that term in here because it looks different, but this list is used by many different entities, and hopefully for now, for centralized procedures, it's not too confusing that it's called Annex 2. We will then move to the declaration section, and here you can make the correct selections. And you will see there are 3 new tick boxes related to personal data that you will need to tick. Please do, of course, read them and acknowledge if correct. And then for if your variation contains other procedure types but type 1A, you will of course include here the date, the implementation date, the comment, or you tick the box from the next production run. For proof of payment, for centralized procedure is defaulted to no. It's possible to edit this section to add the telephone number, the email address, and the purchase order number. We'll skip that for now. And then, of course, you have the section for the signatories where you fill in your details here with your job title and the date. Important note here, for now, unfortunately, it's only possible to add one other additional signatory. We will be improving this in future. And please note, very, very important, you do not sign the form here. It is not possible to include a signature or signature snippet in here. The form, if you wish to sign the form, you will export the form and then you will sign that exported form. So we save. And the next step, which you can of course do at any point, especially when this is something completely new, you may wish to see how the changes appear in the exported PDF. So you will simply click here to export. And this can be done as many times as needed. At any stage of the form filling, you can check this. Okay, and here it comes. And please note, only certain roles can do this. And this is because there is commercially confidential data included in that XML file that is included in the PDF. So you have to acknowledge that and then you download. As you can see, the form is now downloaded and I can directly open it or I can view it from here. The PDF looks almost identical to the interactive PDF form. It is of course possible then to click to that little paperclip image in that PDF and to see the XML. If you have a HTML reader, it looks a lot better, a lot more human readable. But of course, there's no reason for you to, as a human being, to read that via XML, but you can simply look at the PDF export. But we'll move to the Q&A now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christina. Okay, so I will now start sharing the Q&A window. Okay, so now you see here the most voted questions. So you are invited also during this live Q&A to upvote them. So first question is it possible to reuse, clone a form for another procedure and then adjust it?
A very good question. I've addressed this in the user guide. We strongly recommend against reuse. Unfortunately, the feature to copy or to clone form is not yet available. We know this is something that has been requested by multiple colleagues already during the project, but unfortunately, it's something that is technically very complex to provide. And it's not in a way a mandatory feature. We understand that, especially for MRP DCP in future, it's really almost have to have, but unfortunately it's not yet available, and we really strongly recommend against reusing a form, because if you make changes in a form that you've already submitted for a purpose of reusing it for a second procedure, if you then have to change it for the first procedure, you have to change it again, and then you may end up having unintended changes in one of those procedures if you need to resubmit. So we really recommend against that. So please just you create a fresh form. I know it's really not nice, but we are working on a feature to clone or copy the form.
Thank you, Christina. Okay, next question is, what happens if two colleagues are working on the same eAF in parallel?
Another very, very good question. And I think I've also addressed this in the user guide. Unfortunately, the feature to indicate that someone else is working on the same form at the same time as you is not available at present. So it could be that if two colleagues are working in the same section of this very same form at the same time, you may override each other's changes. Although you could say, I'm going to work in this product selection, you select in the proposed changes, then that would be fine. And hopefully there would be no overwriting, but please try and coordinate. We are looking at putting in place some measures that would at least highlight that someone else is in the form at the same time. That would prevent you to lose your changes. But currently it is possible, but it may have unwanted effects.
Thank you. How does it work for a MR product if you have different MIHs in the involved MS?
I'm not quite sure what is meant by this question. For mutual recognition, of course, at this time, the forms are only catering for centralized procedure, for centrally authorized products. So maybe we can address this question when the nationally authorized products, including MRP and DCP, are available in the form.
When the web-based eAF become mandatory for NAPs?
I'll respond to this in the view of NAPs and CAPs. We have not yet started the transition period towards the mandatory use. This will be launched well in time. In order for us to start the transitional period, all features that are currently available in the interactive PDF must be available before we can say it's mandatory to use this form. So until we have all the products available that, for example, those the nationally authorized products, and we have ensured that you can do all the scenarios using those forms, we cannot start the mandatory use as of yet. So there will be plenty of time to prepare, and we will give well in advance notification when this will happen.
Okay. So next question is on roles. So what roles should you have when managing dossier from another MAH?
I can
know,
take
Joao,
this.
if you want also to
Yeah.
contribute with Christina.
Yeah, I can give a very quick answer, and Joao can give more information. So basically, it's very hard, in my view, to give a generic answer. It really depends on the relationship between those two marketing authorization holders, how much information you wish to show to your counterpart. In the form, we don't have this concept of global company, but let's think of one of these larger organizations that have multiple organizations in different countries. So Glaxo may be considered as one company for all the different Glaxos in different countries. And you may not be bothered about the fact that your colleagues can see all of your products, no matter from which country you are from, and you don't care that they can see the commercially confidential information. In which case, you can give any role that you wish. But there may be scenarios where you don't want the other marketing authorization holder to see your products with the commercially confidential information, in which case you may wish to select a more restricted role.
Thank you, Christina. Joao, I don't know whether you want to add anything or should we pass to the next question?
No, it's clear to me.
Thank you. How long does it take from approval of a role in the EMA account management to the role becoming effective in the PLM portal?
This one I can take. Indeed, so the administrator roles are approved by the EMA. We aim to process those requests as soon as possible. It's difficult to say here exactly how long does it take. But yeah, we aim to do it as soon as possible. You receive a confirmation email as soon as they are approved. And then to become effective in the PLM portal, you should wait around 45 minutes to allow us to sync the account management portal with the PLM portal.
Thank you, Joao. Is it possible at any stage of filling out the eAF to save and export the form, even if it's not completely filled in and validated? Question is related to work sharing outside of the PLM portal.
Sure, I can take this. So absolutely, you can save at any time and you can export at any time. So even if you have done the very first thing to select the reference MAH and, for example, selected one product, it's already possible to export. So you can do that at any point of time. We have not limited that at all.
How long will the forms, drafts, deactivated or completed be retained in the PLM portal?
We have set a retention period for the drafts and for completed forms to 2 years, and for deactivated forms to 1 year. Before we delete any deactivated forms, you would receive a notification, or in general, if before there is any auto deletion of anything, the MAH will be notified. But for now, those retention periods are set for 2 years if there is no activity in the form. If you go into the form, do any change, save it again, then again that restarts that 2-year period.
Thank you. Once a role is granted to a person, can it be changed in the future for the same person?
I can take that. The answer is yes. So one would need first to revoke the already granted role and then submitting a new request. So the revoke can be done either by the user, him or herself, or by the administrator of that organization. And then the request would need to be submitted by the user.
Thank you, Joao. Is there any test system for the eAF?
Yes, so we have a test environment. We have a number of colleagues who were involved in what we used to call an alpha UAT, and actually those ones who were involved in the beta UAT, the larger external user acceptance testing, we have not revoked those rights, so they have access to the test system. But of course, because you're not actually submitting anything from the portal itself, you just create the form, you export the form, and then you include the exported PDF inside your ECTD submission. You can also test for now using this even the production system. But of course, as and when we release new functionality and new features, we are foreseeing a larger external UAT to test further features. More details will be announced at the time when we are ready and we have provided a sufficient number of new features that it makes sense to organize such an external testing. We are also looking at restarting the alpha UAT. So if you were involved in that, you may already continue when we announce that there are new features available.
Thank you, Christine. I think we can take the last question before closing. Of course, as usual, we will keep the Slido open. So if you want to continue submitting questions in the meanwhile, and we will produce a Q&A document after this training. So question is, correct name for DADI's PLM portal eAF now?
That's correct. So DADI was the name of the project, so Digital Application Data Integration Project. We have subsequently moved into Agile project management approach, and we don't have a project per se. Of course, we occasionally still refer to DADI, but we are renaming. So we're trying to rename the project. Of course, it's PLM Portal eAF. It's a bit of a mouthful. It's a longer name. DADI was very easy and catchy, maybe a bit silly as well. But yes, the portal is called PLM portal. The product that is available through that portal for now is the variation eAF. So we're still looking at what is the best way of, if we want to talk about the project on an overall level, but indeed we don't talk about DADI, or the portal is not called DADI.
Thank you, Christina. Maybe to add that the scope of the portal itself in the future will be wider. So this is why it is not only a portal on eAF. So in the future, it will also host the data input interface for PMS and API. So it is a portal on the product lifecycle management. So it has a broader scope. Okay, so I want to quickly launch a poll to get your feedback on this training. So always using Slido, kindly ask you to vote on a scale of 1 to 10. How likely are you to recommend this training to appear? And then I hand over in the meanwhile to Christina for closing. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all of you for participation, and thank you very much for very good questions. There's some very good new questions as well. So as Christina mentioned, we will have an updated Q&A. We will of course try and address these questions in the user guide as well where relevant. And please continue submitting questions. The Slido will remain open, and we will answer those questions through the Slido, but we will also export those responses. And please bear in mind, we do have 3 Q&A clinics scheduled for the next upcoming 3 weeks. Anyone can join. We're there to answer any questions you may have, and we can also demonstrate any feature, how to do something in the portal if you have questions. So please feel free to join those sessions. They're there to help you, and if needed, we will schedule some more sessions. Thank you very much and have a lovely day. And I hope you have a good experience on using the new forms.